guys, it's Karen Stever coming at you from the Public Playground Project, and I am sitting at my program here called Melodyne, which there's been a lot of discussion in the forums and kind of on various networking sites I'm on, and not even just on the public record, but there's been a lot of discussion about Melodyne, and I just wanted to talk to you guys about this program and my approach using it. There's been a lot of talk over the years about the program called Auto-Tune, which does have the capability of going in and tuning stuff manually, but a lot of people will slap Auto-Tune on an entire track, just kind of out of laziness, really, is that they use it as a plug-in to just correct their vocal, and that's it. And a lot of the times you'll hear Auto-Tune grab, especially if somebody's nowhere near their note. The auto-tune correction is so far away from what it needs to be that all these artifacts end up showing up in the track. I am not a fan of that. I would never just stick a plug-in on a whole track to correct something. Now, part of my job in the music industry is I do vocal editing, and I do work with vocalists, and I do production, and I do, excuse me, do producing, and I do recording. So there's a lot of aspects of the industry I have to embrace for my work. But I'll tell you guys, let you in a little bit on my thoughts on Melodyne, when you should use it, in what capacity it should be used, and what you can get out of it, and how you can get the most out of it. What I have in front of me here is a vocal that, before I turned the camera on, I messed with. It's just one Concrete Eggshells line out of the song, and I exaggerated a whole bunch of stuff so that I could show you what would happen if a vocal came in this way. I did not sing it this way. If I sang this vocal this way, I just need to pack it in because it's just brutal. But what I'm going to do is take you guys through how to use Melodyne. It's a two-part thing. It's how to fix stuff that you need to fix, especially if you're recording other people. But it's also, and I think the more important aspect of Melodyne, is how can you use it to educate yourself on how you are singing, and how you can start to correct things in your own vocal performance. And this is exactly what I've used Melodyne for my own vocals, is so that I don't have to eventually use Melodyne. Is that I start looking at my own vocal and going, well, you're doing this too much or that too much, and you can start correcting things in your performance, so that eventually when you take it into Melodyne, you either correct very little or you don't correct at all. So that's the goal. To me, using Melodyne is all about it being a way to microscopically look at what your vocal's doing, and then you use that as a way to correct your own vocal performance, not the track after the fact. Now, this happens to me a lot where I don't have the luxury of educating every single client that I do their vocal. In fact, a lot of them I haven't even met. I'll have vocals sent to me, and I correct their vocals and send it back. What I would like to do, and what I do with my own clients, is if I say to them, can you handle me telling you the truth about what's going on with your vocals? If so, I think this will help you in your performance as well, if you know what I am seeing under a microscope with your performance. And it's kind of a lot of the same things. One of the first things that I'll notice about a lot of vocals that have been recorded is things like the S's, the F's, the CH's, and the T's are way too hot, and they're hitting the mic too hard. Now, I would say 90% of the time, this is how the person is performing. The other 10% of the time is how it's recorded. So if an S is being hit really, really hard, there's a good chance that the way you're saying it at the microphone could be tampered down a little bit, and you could use things like a de-esser and other things. So I think it's good to look at things like that. I'm just going to play this track. It's going to sound really awful, and I don't mind showing that to you. From Concrete Eggshells. So what I've done is I've messed with a bunch of stuff. I've exaggerated some of the consonants that are on it. I've changed how I ended the phrase. I've messed with the vibrato and the shake in the vocal. I've the consistency in velocities I've messed with, and I've messed with the timing and the pitch. And these are all areas that if you can learn from your own vocal what you're doing, that's your problematic area, you can start to fix this at the source. And then that way, when you jump up on stage or you sing with your friends, you're going to have a closer to perfect vocal. I'm not a big fan of, oh, you have to be a perfect vocalist. I love character. And I do like Melodyne for that because I can control what I tune and what I don't tune. So I can leave a lot of character in people's vocals when I do that. But let's say, for instance, here, you'll see that this first C, see how hard that's hitting it? When you just get a little over anxious in your vocal and you go concrete, is just unnecessary, and you end up kind of sounding sometimes a little too 80s metal when you overemphasize stuff like that. It's just like concrete. It's not necessary. You can hit the whole word hard if you want, but you got to watch some of those consonants because it can take away from it sounding professional. Now what I can do in Melodyne is I can bring that down, much like this S on here. I can bring down. But another problem people have with S's is they hit them really hard, but they'll also hang on to them way too long. So that this S, even though I've brought it down, they're still hitting it way too hard. So then I can pull that to be properly in tune. Another thing I notice about people is that is when they end a phrase, something like this, for instance. That I used to hold that out when you guys hear the song. I would hold it out for the count, the whole count, so it would go da, da, da. If you guys start counting out to the end of a phrase and try to hold your notes out, I've always said the difference between a vocal sounding professional and the difference between a sounding amateur is the way a person ends a note, not generally how they hit a note or hold a note. You'll hear really great vocalists like Celine Dion and Whitney Houston. The way that they end their notes, just go and listen to some tracks of your favorite singers and listen to how they end the notes and how they end a word. And when they hold on to the end of that phrase, makes it sound way more pro than if you just let go of that word whenever you feel like it. So things like that can make your vocal sound a lot better. Vibrato and shake in a vocal. Sometimes when you look at this last word, I've exaggerated the vibrato in it. Something like that can be easily corrected in Melodyne by just simply doing this and getting it to be, that's more how it looked before I messed with it. So I don't mind having vibrato in there. It gives it some character, kind of like a Stevie Nicks or a Beth Hart thing. But the idea of it just being sounding, there's a difference between something sounding like a consistent vibrato and you just having a shake in your voice that doesn't sound like there's a confidence hitting that vocal. So that's that. And velocity, when I talked about that before, this is something that you guys can mess around with compression and also with where you're standing in relation to your mic. Sometimes when people stand too close to their mic, you know, words start to look like this when I see them, so they hit some words harder than others. If you learn a little bit of mic control, and most of you people who have live experience probably know a little bit more about mic control than somebody who's in the studio for the first time, you know, because you guys know what it means to pull off that mic when you go too loud. So, and then of course the other thing is timing and tuning. Now, timing is one of those things that most people, I would say 80% at least of the vocals, these are random numbers I'm throwing, but they're high percentages of people who send me vocals are ahead. And that usually signifies that they're nervous because they go too fast. I've always said that the song does not end before the song ends. So if you settle in to your song and you find that groove, you can tell in Melodyne when you put your vocal in there where you're ahead. And a lot of people are way ahead of the beat. And if you can settle in, your song will end up sounding way more pro, and you will give your listener a nice groove. The other thing being pitch. The two things I've noticed about pitch with almost everybody is that the high notes that people go for, believe it or not, are almost always, and I'm saying closer to 100% of the vocals I get, are closer to being too sharp than either in pitch or too flat. The reason for this is because when a person goes to hit a really high note, they think the note is higher than it really is. So when they go to hit a really high note, they blow past it, and it's completely unnecessary. If you start thinking about that, and even if you put your own vocals into a program like Melodyne, you'll probably notice anytime you hit it, go for a high note. Most people are like, I can't hit that high note. You did hit it and you blew past it. Almost every time. I'm saying close to 100% of the vocals I get, all high notes are too sharp and I have to pull them down. So it comes from having to just reach for it, and you've gone and reached way higher than the note really is. And the opposite with really low notes. People go flat because they think, oh, I gotta reach down for that low note, and then the note ends up being flat. So those are some of the things that I noticed with Melodyne I wanted to share with you. As far as correction goes, I would say the goal is to not use this program or use it very, very little as a fixing method or as a way to fix your vocals, but more to correct your performance at the source. So it's a really great way to put your vocals under a microscope and see what's going on with them, and then you can start going, okay, I won't hit my S's as hard. Okay, I'll put myself in better timing. Okay, I won't reach for those notes quite as high, and then I'll hit the right note and it'll sound better. Watch my timing and all those sorts of things. So hopefully you guys can handle the truth of your own vocal, and if you use a program like this, you can either use it, of course you can use it to fix your vocals, but I would rather you use it to educate yourself on your problematic areas, and then you can correct them at the source. Alright, so until next time, rock on!